How do music producers like Pharrell and Rick Rubin build careers that span over decades? I think most of us assume that it's just because they are extremely talented at what they do and were probably well connected and worked really hard. At least that's what I always assumed. But after spending a few years now as a business advisor to some Grammy winning and multi platinum producers, I'm starting to notice that being extremely talented, highly connected, and hardworking doesn't guarantee anything. Sometimes those producers still quit, and I wanted to figure out why. I've made a full-time living in music for about 12 years now, essentially 1 decade. So in the grand scheme of things, I'm still pretty new. But I could share with you what I've learned so far about how to make music production your career, hopefully forever. So let's start with a question that I ask every new producer I meet. The question is, do you think you should be focused on making money as a music producer or building a career as a music producer? And it can seem like a trick question, but it's not. You might be thinking, well, in order to have a career, I obviously have to make money. And you would be right. However, you can make money with something, but never actually have a career, or at least not a career that stands the test of time. Think about how many people you know with that reality. Maybe it was a family member or friend who at one point started a business, but eventually went back to their day job. Maybe it's a famous fraudster you see on the news who made a lot of money once, but doesn't have a career anymore. Maybe it's a fellow musician who you've seen earn some money here and there, but they're unable to make it a full-time thing. Or maybe it was a full-time thing, but they quit. All of those are examples of making money, but not having a career. And I've found that the difference all boils down to one thing: the decisions that we make. That's the one thing. Despite what the internet tells you, there is absolutely not one simple roadmap or program that every producer can follow to find success in music. You could certainly learn something awesome, but the faster you stop believing that, the faster you'll actually find some real success, because you'll stop looking for the magic answer and instead start learning how to make good decisions. And even though that magic answer doesn't exist, what does exist are frameworks that can help you make better and smarter decisions, thus increasing the probability that you'll have a long-term career making money doing the thing you love. And I'll show you one of those frameworks in this video, because this is something that I wish I had coming up, but I wasn't able to really explain this until I had hindsight looking back at what I did myself, and also through gaining experience working inside hundreds of other music production businesses over the years. And yes, that's no exaggeration, I'm old. So this is what it looks like. Let me explain what all of this means real quick. There are typically 3 primary focus points when building a career as a producer. And by focus points, I just mean something you would focus on and spend time building. Each of these generate income, but may do it in a slightly different way. The first is freelance, also referred to sometimes as active income. This focus includes anything where you're being paid upfront for your time or talent, from getting paid by a client to produce and mix a song, to getting paid hourly to teach a workshop, to getting paid thousands of dollars to perform live. You're paid when you do the thing. And it's not speculative, meaning you're not taking a risk on a project that you might get paid on. This is guaranteed money. You don't start the work until there's an agreement that you're going to get paid. The pros to freelance or active income is that it's generally the most controllable way to generate some money as a music producer. I talk about that in a lot of our videos here on the channel. However, some common downsides to freelance are you have to trade your time for money, right? So it may not scale, and it's not typically where most of your big reputation building will come from, although it can lead to that, as you'll see in a minute. Generally speaking, for producers, most of your big reputation building will come from placements. You spend time making music up front, but with no guaranteed paycheck necessarily. You might have a little survival money from a publishing deal, but that's not everyone. However, if the music does get chosen or placed with a major artist or film, then you could land a much bigger payday and unlock more opportunities. That is the upside to this second focus up here, which we will call industry. The downside to this one, of course, is that you have to do a ton of work with essentially no guarantee that you'll ever make any money. Your efforts don't always match your return, and that can be really frustrating. And it's generally less controllable because a lot more people have to say yes, and everything has to perfectly fall into place before you make a dime. And the final focus over here is called assets and is sometimes referred to as passive or residual income. This can be the most complex, but also the most important focus you'll have as a producer, because this one makes it easier to sustain your career over a long period of time. Assets are anything you create or acquire once that continues to earn money or generate new opportunities for you. The most obvious asset for a producer is their music catalog. You make a song once and it continues to generate royalties. Or you make a sample pack for another company and they split the revenue with you every month. Creating beats to lease on YouTube is technically an asset. Even making the YouTube video itself is an asset. For example, I will make a video like the one you're watching right now. I only have to make it once. However, over time, it gets more and more views. And despite not making much money off of those views, producers find me because of videos like this, and they become clients of my company. So content can also be considered an asset. The benefits of this focus is obvious, right? You make something once and it continues to pay you over and over again. And that's awesome. The downsides to this one are similar to the industry focus we just talked about. You could end up spending all of your time on things that never generate any money or opportunities. Okay, so those are the 3 focus points. None of them are good or bad or right or wrong. It's just understanding what they all are. The next thing to understand is that all of the income streams or ways to make money that you have available to you as a music producer will fit into one of these focus points. That is important because instead of feeling like you could go down 100 different paths, you only ever need to really decide between 3. Do you just need money to pay the bills next month? Do you want to build an asset for the future? Or do you want to go after one of your big goals in the industry and build some reputation? You might look at this and think, well, I want all of those things. And you can have all of those things, but the way you decide to attack this is what will determine if you just make some money as a music producer or if you have a truly long-term sustainable career as a music producer. Remember what I said earlier. The thing that separates one from the other is your ability to make good decisions for you. And before I give you some examples of good decision making, I want to share the 2 most common pitfalls that producers run into. Pitfall number 1, they try to do all 3 focus points at once by just throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. They never master any of these focus points, and since it doesn't come from a place of intentional decision making, we're pretty much relying 100% on luck. Even worse, many times they will copy another producer thinking that they've figured out the key to success, but in reality, the producer they are copying was just one of the few who got lucky throwing spaghetti at the wall and something stuck, which great for them, but it's almost impossible for you to model. And pitfall number 2 is putting all of your efforts into only one of these focus points forever while completely ignoring the others. You're not diversified. So now you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, so I need all 3 focus points, but I shouldn't do them all at the same time. Exactly. And that's where the decision making comes into play. And that's where this gets really fun, because the magic to this framework lies in between the 3 focus points. Did you notice that in between all 3 of these, you see the word leverage? Leverage is just using one of these focus points to make building the other way easier. Sometimes this naturally happens. For example, if you are focused on industry and get a hit song, then you've also created an asset that will continue to pay you. There are a few things that you could leverage. You could leverage your reputation, brand, network, time, or money you've earned in one focus point to start or grow another focus point. And the easiest way to teach you this is just through some examples. So let's jump over to the whiteboard and I'll show you my own as well as a few others. Okay, so we'll start with the example of my production company that I used to run. So with my company, we started on the freelance side, right? So artists, brands, companies would come and pay us money upfront to produce, write, mix records for them. That gave us some control and allowed us to pay the bills and create some cash flow to use for other things. The next thing that we wanted to do was create an asset. And there were a couple of different ways that we created an asset. The first way is that we took money. Again, money is one of the things you can leverage, right? Money, reputation, time. We took money from the freelance business, and instead of going out and launching a sample pack company and starting from scratch, we just purchased a sample pack company that was already making some money, and now we had an asset. That asset ended up growing into Make Pop Music, if any of you are familiar with that YouTube channel. The other thing we did with freelance is it grew our network, and it helped us find great talent to build catalog with. So some of our freelance clients who used to hire us for producing became more of a musical partner on the catalog side, and with one of them, we wrote some songs that ended up getting sync placements. Again, that is another asset, right? A music catalog that generates royalties. As a byproduct of some of our freelance work, we had one client who, again, hired us to make records, but her record actually sold pretty well. It charted on Billboard. That allowed us to leverage reputation from here, from freelance up to industry, and kind of unlock some doors, right? More people will answer your phone calls if they could see, okay, these kids have produced something that charted. That's pretty awesome. So simple example, let's look at another one. Okay, so let's look at my buddy Kevin, who is a mix engineer. His is cool because it goes all the way around the framework here. So he started freelancing, had, a local studio, and was doing mixing. One of those artists that he would mix for ended up being DaBaby, who signed a big deal, and that pushed Kevin into this. He was able to leverage reputation from mixing DaBaby to unlock more doors and mix more projects in the industry. Because of his industry clout, he was able to leverage that reputation to build an asset in the form of a company hiring him to make education courses and stuff. So again, he didn't have to build the company or run the company. He just showed up, made the courses, and then those courses continue to pay him. And because he has that asset of a bunch of students coming through and seeing who he is, more of them hire him to do mixing, right? And that goes back to the freelance. So he's leveraging the brand from the assets, not only to make money, but to increase his awareness in the market, which means more people know he mixes and wants him to mix their stuff. So that's Kevin's example. Similarly, if you had somebody start with industry like Timbaland, right, and build a huge name here and then leverage that to build an asset. Obviously, his music catalog is an asset, but he launched Beat Club, taking reputation from the industry, leveraging that to create an asset that continues to earn money. Another simple one is like, let's say all you want to do is freelance, and you take some of the extra money you make from freelance and invest it into a retirement account. That is technically taking money from freelance and creating an asset for yourself. A lot of people in the industry will also, get a big publishing deal or something, make a lot of money because they have a hit song. A friend of ours produced one of Drake's biggest songs. He re-upped his pub deal, took a lot of that money, and started buying cafes and restaurants. So this stuff doesn't even have to be within the industry, technically. It gets really, really cool, and it's all about just knowing how to leverage one to get the other. So let's do one that starts over here with assets. In Dark Label, there's a buddy of mine, Nathan Larson. Some of you guys may know him from YouTube. And remember that we said content is also an asset, right? Something you create once that continues to work for you. So even though Nathan had some freelance experience, for the sake of this, really his asset, his YouTube channel, is what blew things up for him. And he used this to do a couple of things. The first is he leveraged, again, reputation to meet people that helped him get in here. He's been able to do a bunch of awesome writing sessions and, explore pub deals and stuff because of his YouTube channels. He was able to get responses back from people that are essentially his heroes in like the sync licensing world and stuff like that, in the composing world. He also took his asset This is a different thing. Check this out. He took his asset, the YouTube channel, and leveraged that to make another asset, right? Which is a course that he has, a digital product, essentially. And that digital product gives him time, which he can leverage. Time is another thing he can leverage because it's passive income, relatively passive, to go actually do more of this stuff. And if he wanted to, which sometimes he does, he leverages his YouTube channel to kick up freelance work. He didn't continue doing freelance work, but the option is there if he needs it. And that is the power of leverage. So what do I recommend? In most cases, I recommend choosing one focus point to start with, or continue to grow the focus point that you're already establishing yourself in. And when you feel the urge to pivot or take a project that is outside of your main focus, just start asking yourself, is this just shiny object syndrome because I'm worried that what I'm focused on right now isn't going to work out for me? If the answer is yes, then just know that jumping to something else isn't going to fix the thing that you're currently working on. Just focus on fixing that. If the answer is no, then maybe it does make sense to explore another focus point. And in that case, you want to just ask yourself, do I have anything here that I can leverage to make it easier to add something new to my plate? Just like in some of those examples I showed. So that's at least a starting point for making better and more intentional decisions. I can't give blanket advice that's going to work for every individual watching this video because that's just not how the world works. Different producers have different needs right now and different risk tolerances. And if you need something that will help you prioritize things based on your risk tolerance, then watch this next video because I'll share a framework you'll want to have in your toolbox as a professional music producer, building a career that hopefully lasts forever.